Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study in the book of Esther. Well, yesterday, Ahasuerus, Xerxes, rejected, demoted, removed Vashti as queen, and now he's having to look for a new queen. We said that, or I said that I think the book of Esther is kind of a challenge. It's kind of um, a, a mental puzzle for us. It's asking us to do in this book what we do in everyday life. God isn't mentioned, worship isn't mentioned, prayer isn't mentioned. There are a few little hints that we'll see along the way, but they're not mentioned, and that's been a puzzlement to everybody. But I think God's challenging us to see Him in the everyday events that are happening in this book, the way we are challenged to see Him in the everyday events of our own lives. I think this is a quite a mature challenge that God sets for us, and we start seeing His hand in things today, because there's the need for a new queen. Um, the um, the existential crisis that will face the Jews in the Persian Empire have nothing to do with Esther and Vashti and the throne, the position of queen. However, whenever that time comes, there is a Jewish queen on the throne who is placed to rescue God's people. So we see right now God's hand in things from the very beginning. There's a search for a new queen. They're looking all over the empire for the most beautiful women in the empire. Now, we saw last time when he sent out these decrees, he had to send it out in a variety of languages because, as we said yesterday, as it tells us in verse 1, um, Xerxes ruled from the Indus Valley all the way to Ethiopia and everything in between, all of Mesopotamia, Palestine, Egypt. He ruled it all, and so he had to. There were a lot of people, a lot of ethnicities under his rule. The Jews have years ago, by his grandfather, had been allowed to go back to Palestine if they wanted to and rebuild Jerusalem, and tens of thousands of them had. But there's still an enormous population of Jews in the Persian Empire, and Esther is one of them, and so is her kinsman Mordecai. So, as the search is being conducted, there was a Jew in Susa, chapter 2, verse 5, the capital, whose name was Mordecai. Mordecai is not a Jewish name. It's from the name Marduk, which is one of the chief Babylonian gods. So he has a name like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He's named after one of the Babylonian gods, Mordecai. He is of Jair, the son of Shimei, the sons of Kish, the Benjamite. That makes him a direct relation of King Saul. Okay, that's important later on. But he is of the direct line of the family of King Saul. Anyway, he's living in the capital, um, and he had taken, who had taken, been taken into exile from Jerusalem with the captives who had been exiled with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had exiled. Mordecai wasn't taken into captivity, um, but Jair, or one of his forebears, Shimei, one of those guys have been taken into captivity. He'd have to be like 120 years old at this point if he'd been one of the ones taken into captivity. Anyway, he is the de facto father of Hadassah. He was bringing up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. Now the young lady was beautiful of form and face. That's said of Rachel as well, and no one else really in the Bible. And when her father and her mother had died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. The word Hadassah in Hebrew means star, and the word Esther in the Persian means star. So that's her name. Her name is Star. Um, and you can see that we get our word star from that word because Esther, S-T-R, is in the word. Anyway, Esther means star and Hadassah means star. And she's being raised technically by her first cousin, but a man who's old enough to be her dad, and he's raised her up as his own daughter. Came about when the command and decree of the king were heard, many young ladies were gathered to Susa, the capital, in the custody of Hegai, that Esther was taken to the king's palace in the custody of Hegai, who was in charge of the women. He was a eunuch. Eunuchs were highly prized and even used as tribute between nations. Um, Highly educated, highly prized, and only eunuchs would have been able to have access to the king's harem or to the women the king was considering to be his queen. Now the young lady pleased him, found favor with him, so he quickly provided her with cosmetics and food, and gave her 7 choice maids from the king's palace, and transferred her and her maids to the best place in the harem. Esther did not make known her people or kindred, for Mordecai had instructed her that she should not make them known, and every day Mordecai walked back and forth in front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was and how she fared. And then Ahasuerus is himself chooses Esther to become the queen, and so she becomes queen instead of Vashti. And it says the queen loved Esther, chapter 2, verse 17, more than all the women. She found favor and kindness with him more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. So she goes through all the process of preparing herself to be presented to the king. He loves her, immediately loves her more than all women. She finds not just favor, but kindness in his eyes. There's a real marital bond, marital love that connects um, King Xerxes to Esther. Now, we don't know Esther from history. Her name is not recorded in any of the annals, but Mordecai's name is. Mordecai is a highly placed court official who is a commissioner of revenue of sorts, who receives and accounts for the money. And of course, the accounting, the records that were kept by the Babylonians, the Medes, and the Persians are unparalleled, really, in human history, even to this day. They kept such narrow track of everything, close track of everything, that 70 years after the destruction of the temple, when Cyrus let the Jews go back to rebuild, they had the list of everything and they knew where it was and went and found it and gave it back to the Jews. I don't know that our government could do that after 70 years nowadays with all the different ways we have of keeping track of things. So anyway, so this has happened. Now we have everything put in place for events to start unfolding, which will tell us how the Jews were saved when it looked like they were about to be annihilated. So now Esther is queen. Okay, next time we're together, we're going to talk about the plot against King Ahasuerus, against Xerxes, and about Mordecai and his relationship with Haman. Okay, thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.